Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at marcguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. This episode and wine tasting is sponsored by Lenny Clark with Prime Lending. Lenny Clark is a loan officer specializing in residential home lending. He communicates with you every step of the way, and his honesty sets him apart from the rest. He's able to think outside of the box due to his experience and is able to tailor a loan program to fit your needs. If you can't qualify just yet, not a problem. He will let you know what you need to do in order to be ready. Lanny is also backed by Prime Lending, which is one of the biggest and fastest growing lending banks in the nation. They have simplified the home lending process down to 5 steps. And FYI, step number 5 is to relax and enjoy your new home. So contact Lenny Clark today at 510-964-0620. Who is Christian Chasmer? At just 26 years of age, Christian is one of the rising young minds in the business world today. His company, Elevate Advisors, provides businesses with the tools and resources to expand beyond their own goals. His goal is to enable every business owner to run their own business and live their best life simultaneously. Based out of San Diego, today Christian joins us to go into detail on his business philosophy and offer his own insights into today's job market. Okay, perfect. Christian, thank you for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate your time on this.
Yeah, absolutely, Marc. Thanks for having me.
So one thing I like to ask many of my guests is, what has your attention right now? It could be a book, music, politics, maybe a hobby you're passionate, maybe even your work. I mean, what has your attention right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Work-wise, definitely has my attention right now. I'm building a new program out called Elevate Next, and that's been really, really exciting. It's a big passion of mine, and that's been really taking up a lot of my time in the best way.
Mm-hmm. So right now you're in San Diego, right? That's where your home base is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How's the weather down there?
It's sunny right now, but it's actually been really rainy this February. It's rained actually quite a bit, but it's beautiful and hot right now, so I can't complain.
Nice. Yeah. It seems like most of America has been super cold. We've been here in the Bay Area going through like a lot of cold fronts, rain, and we've had some weather. We had snow in Orinda, if you're familiar with the Bay Area.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there was frost on the ground last night here, so it's definitely cold everywhere.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your background, how you ended up in San Diego, and eventually what led up to Elevate Advisors.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of been all over the map in America, but I grew up in a really small town in New Jersey, lived there till I was 18, till I went off to college, and, typical small town. I didn't really know about entrepreneurship. I didn't know about personal development. I thought personal development was going to the gym. Like, I never even met an adult that read for leisure. So the usual stuff. So for me, in my small town, if you wanted to make money and get out of the small town, you either became a banker and went to New York City, or you became a lawyer and went to New York City. So I went to school at the University of South Carolina and was on the pre-law track. I was going down that route, didn't really care much about it, but that's just what you did, right? That's kind of where I was socially conditioned to think like that. And then randomly in a class, my junior year of college, I saw this piece of paper on the desk, and it said, make $10,000 over the summer running your own business. And as a broke college kid, I had like $32 in my bank account. I said, sign me up. I'll do anything for 10 grand. So I joined this internship program, and it wound up being a franchise type model where I started and ran my own exterior painting company. So I knocked on doors, I sold paint jobs, I learned how to do sales, and then I learned how to hire, interview, and manage my own team of painters and produce the work over the summer. And that was really tough.
Did you ever do any of the painting yourself, or you basically subbed it out?
Oh yeah, so I did a lot of the painting myself that first summer. Once I once I became a better leader and systemizer and entrepreneur, I did less of the painting, but definitely in the first summer, I was doing a lot of the painting with my team.
Okay. So this initial make $10,000 over the summer is what really caught your eye.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never heard of a college student being able to make that type of money. And I was looking for internships and applying to law schools at the time. I was broke and it said, hey, this is an opportunity to do that. And I said, sign me up. That sounds great to me.
Now, did this lay the foundation for you and becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So it completely changed my trajectory in life. It was an amazing experience. I did wind up making that $10,000 over the summer, but it was the hardest summer of my life. It was so tough, lots of sweat, lots of blood, lots of tears. And at the end of the summer, I really learned two things about myself. One was I love entrepreneurship. I love running my own business, and that's what I'm going to commit to. And two, I was really bad at it. I wasn't a great leader. I wasn't a great entrepreneur yet. So I really needed to learn. I needed to get more humble, and I needed to develop my skills. So yeah, that first summer really changed my life and made me go from applying to law school to becoming an entrepreneur right out of college.
Mm-hmm. So how did that eventually lead up to Elevate?
Yeah. So I did that for another year, my senior year of college. I did the same thing. At that time, though, teaching other college students how to run their own businesses. So I taught 5 other college students how to run their own painting company, and then I ran my own. Was pretty successful with that. And after I graduated, I wound up moving up to Boston, Massachusetts, to start my own division of that company. So I did that for about 10 months to a year, built that up to about $1.2 million. And I said, hey, I'm getting pretty decent at systems and leadership. Let me go start my own thing with my business partner. So me and my business partner then started a real estate development company called CC Solutions. We scaled that up over 2 years. And the whole time I was working on systems and leadership and really building out the system for the company to run without me. And eventually I got to that point where I had freedom from the day-to-day. I was leading the leaders, creating the strategy and managing the managers, but I wasn't in the day-to-day. So then at that point, I moved out to San Diego to be closer to my now wife.
Okay. So let's talk about CC Solutions. So this was a development company. What type of developments did you specialize in?
Yeah. So we started out, the ground floor. We started it out, we bought a triplex to live in and rent out. We started out door knocking and doing wholesales. Then we quickly moved over to flipping single families. And then we moved into real development. And that is in the city of Boston. We were doing a lot of value add investment and development where we would find a single family, learn how to creatively zone it as a 3-unit or a 4-unit, knock down the single family, and then build 3 to 4 units on the land.
Smart.
Yeah. We got really good at property acquisition and creatively finding deals in terms of value add. So that was our whole niche, was value add through creating more units.
So in your experience in creating value add for properties and really on the acquisition side, what's the number one tip you can give to someone who's looking to do that same thing? I mean, how do you find a property that could have really good potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it came from being on the ground, networking hard, learning where other investors are putting in their time, seeing where the market is. And we really started to look at what were the zoning regulations, what were the requirements, what was the code in those areas, and figuring that out really allowed us to know what we were playing with, because we were finding a 2-unit that we could turn into a 3-unit without having to go to any board for approval. We were finding 1 unit that if we did get board approval, we could actually turn into 4 units. So we just got really creative with knowing the regulations, knowing the zoning, and figuring out opportunities in that sense, which I don't think a lot of people were looking at specifically where we were.
Yeah, and that it's funny you say that because I've actually flipped several homes myself, and working with development clients and even other flippers, it's very interesting. Most people, I think, just look at a property and say, okay, I can upgrade this, maybe a few little modifications here and there, like adding a room, maybe knocking down a wall between a living room and dining room to expand it. But I don't think most people think about, well, what's the zoning here? What else can I do on this property? What are the limits? And then being able to look for other opportunities to maybe take one unit and turn it into three.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was kind of our niche and how we really got a lot of traction fast, because we were finding deals. We were able to make deals happen and partner up with people a lot smarter than us in the world of development and learn from them. And using my systems, like I said, I was able to move out to San Diego, and the business was cranking and running and doing well. And it got to the point where I realized that I loved building the systems. I loved leading a team. And I also loved helping other entrepreneurs do the same thing. I in all of my spare time, I was working with my friends for free, obviously, just helping them build their systems and figure out how to make a bigger impact with their company. And through that work and a lot of self-reflection, I realized that I didn't love real estate development as much as I loved doing this. This felt like something that I could do forever. So I sold my equity in my real estate development company, and then created Elevate, which part of the program Elevate Advisors is helping 7 and 8 figure companies that are really, impact driven, wanting to make a big difference in the world, helping them systemize and scale their companies.
So you've mentioned here on the podcast a few times systems. So going back to CC Solutions, what were the systems that you placed into effect that eventually the business was able to run by itself, and you were able to step back and then go off and start Elevate? I mean, so what were the systems that you placed at CC Solutions?
Yeah, great question. So, high level systems, definition of systems is really just ABC, repeatable, duplicatable processes, right? So if you do this, you get this. So we looked at our business as a system. Every single part of our process, from our sales process, our marketing process, our finding properties process, we looked at that as all just parts of a machine. So one of the first things that we started doing was obviously knocking on doors, talking to homeowners, working to get properties under contract like that, right? So we quickly created scripts around that. We created a method for getting to houses faster when you're door knocking, when you're dropping flyers, whatever you're doing. And then we outsourced that. So we hired college students to start doing that part for us. And then from there, we were closing deals and talking with agents and negotiating and analyzing deals. Well, that's a system too. So we just looked at how we were doing that, created the script, created the process for how to analyze the property and run it through, a couple of checks. So we had some checks and balances involved. And then we hired college students to do that part as well. And we use that same methodology to go all the way up the chain and start implementing systems like a weekly meeting. We had a scoreboard to track all of our numbers. We just really looked at the business as a business and as a machine and created systems around it. And that's kind of, every business can do that. If you're a painting business, if you're a consulting business, a marketing business, if you're any type of business, you have systems and processes, and you can work to create those systems to start to, one, outsource, and then two, just make your process better so your clients are happier.
Yeah, and I totally agree 100%. Like, just really creating these what if scenarios. It's kind of like coding, right? You're coding some kind of software. You have a lot of what ifs, and you're literally just putting a system together for an operation to run, and that's exactly what you're doing. I'm in the process right now myself in my business in the property management world, and trying to essentially build out those systems and automate every aspect I can of just day-to-day operations, or especially the very time-consuming items. Now, I think for most business owners, though, the problem you run into is if you don't have the mindset or the knowledge or the experience or even the understanding of how to build out logistics and operational what if scenarios in order to automate your business, that's really when you have to go to a professional that can actually put that together. And so after CC Solutions, that's eventually what you did with Elevate, correct?
Yeah, to almost exactly what you're saying. So with Elevate, I was helping entrepreneurs and still am helping entrepreneurs in their business. We'll look at the business, see what the major bottlenecks are to growing and to scaling, and really just implementing the vision that the entrepreneur wants. And then we get to work helping to systemize that. So we take the approach of coaching and consulting with the leadership team and helping them figure out what are the big bottlenecks in the company. How can we create systems and processes to fix those bottlenecks and, increase profitability, increase employee happiness, make sure you're hiring properly. There's a lot of systems that we can come in and do, but we look for the biggest levers, the biggest priorities, the biggest issues, or the biggest opportunities, and start there. So yeah, if you're looking at systems in your business, it's a very, it's overwhelming, but it's all you have to do is start with one. Like, break it down as simply as possible and just take it one at a time, month over month, and eventually you'll have a whole playbook built out. So it doesn't necessarily have to be intimidating. You can really take it in chunks, and that's what I suggest too with people.
Now, is there any specific type of business you focus on, or is it pretty general? Any business can work with Elevate?
Yeah, any business can work with us. We work with anywhere from seven-figure companies, $1 million, all the way up to, we have a $30 million client. And then we work with a bunch of businesses in the real estate world. And then we have some that are in manufacturing, and we have some in luxury villa rentals. So we have clients all over the map and in all different industries, because systems are really a common thread between all businesses. I will say one thing that we really look for is a growth-focused business, to where somebody is looking to grow their business, they still work in the business, and they actually care and love their business.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's a very big key factor if you love the business you're in, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, we've had people come up to us, and, I've been on calls with people that are like, I hate my company, I hate my employees, I don't like my customers, I just want to make money. And
oh, really?
And that's okay. Like, that's your prerogative. I'm not here to judge, but that's not somebody I can work with, right?
Yeah. So how do you systemize a business in 90 days?
Yeah. Systemizing the business in 90 days that's our process. That's what we do. We really start with the vision. What does the entrepreneur want, right? What does the owner want? What is their big vision? And how do we give that to the team? How do we let the team know what the vision is, and then track the vision? Are we on pace day in and day out to get there? So we start with vision first, and then we move into rhythm, where let's get the team executing in a rhythm. So it's like a sports team, right? If you see a really good football team, they are just in flow with each other. The wide receiver knows what the quarterback's going to do. The quarterback knows where the wide receiver is going to be. They're in a flow. It looks pretty. So our second task is to get the leadership team and the rest of the company in a flow, in rhythm, we call it. And there's a couple of systems and meetings and tools we use to do that. And then the next step is system, where we're helping develop those playbooks, develop the system, the operating procedures, so that way you are getting a repeatable, duplicatable result. So we take it from that perspective: vision, rhythm, system, and we work on all three of those throughout those 90 days.
So with someone that runs their own business, should they be focusing on maybe creating various departments for their business, or not necessarily do they have to build departments? I mean, what's been your experience?
Yeah. So are you, it'd be easier to give me an example. Like, is it a solopreneur or is it somebody who has a team under them?
Yeah, a solopreneur that may have one or two assistants. They want to expand. They want to grow a lot bigger. In real estate and property management, I deal with a lot of real estate agents that are always looking to expand their business. In real estate, most agents are going to be a solopreneur, right? Until they start to pick up business, and then they have one or two assistants. Some people dabble with teams, not many. But for the few agents that may have one or two assistants that then want to take it up a notch, and they have the potential to bring in that business, I mean, operational wise, what would be ideal for them? Should they build out departments to where you have one person who handles buyers, one person who handles listings, maybe one person handle valuations, or would a different type of model be suited better?
Yeah, so that could totally work, and that would be really helpful as to building out those departments. I would take a step back and look at if the reason why I'm not growing is my time capacity, right? I'm just doing too much of the work. I would look at what am I doing on a week. I would take a whole week and look at all of my tasks and all of my things, look at my calendar, and I would say to myself, what can I reasonably pass off to an assistant, to a VA, to an executive assistant? What can I systemize so that I am no longer doing that and I can focus on more growth activities? The more they can focus on servicing the customer or doing the marketing and sales, which is, obviously ideal in that beginning phase, the better. So to give you an example, when I first started Elevate, I love writing and I wanted to start writing articles, and I do. And I noticed pretty quickly that I love writing the content, but then uploading it and all of that took, 30 minutes to an hour each week. So what I did was I just built a system. I created a process on how to upload my articles to all of my social media, how to email my articles, how to upload them to the website. And then I pass that off to my assistant. So now I write the content, pass it off to her, and she makes all the other magic happen. And that saves me about an hour a week, which over the past year is 52 hours. That's pretty substantial. It's a whole week worth of work I can be doing on important activities.
Yeah, I think if you tell any entrepreneur that you can add 52 weeks to their schedule to simply focus on more growth activities, I think they would jump on that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. But people don't look at it that way. They're looking like, man, it's going to take me 2 hours to build that process. I'll just spend the hour to get it out now. But then when you do that over and over and over again, it's a sunk cost. You're wasting time now. So systems are really exponential, which is what I love about them. And, that real estate agent who wants to grow his team, he's going to need those processes and systems built so that way he can pass off where someone only works with a buyer, someone only works with a seller. Like, once they have a little bit of traction with those processes, then they can start really focusing on bringing in the right people, which would be for that person the next step, making sure they're hiring correctly, because that's obviously hugely important.
Now, one item you brought up are virtual assistants. I have experience with virtual assistants, and I actually have good experiences and bad experiences. And at the end of the day, I'm still a fan of virtual assistants. So why don't you break down a little bit how virtual assistants can be extremely helpful for the entrepreneur? Because I think when you hear of VAs, many people don't quite know what that really means, what it entails, how much it's going to cost. And I think the biggest scare factor is because they cannot physically see the person in their office, that person might not be fully working for them 100% of the time.
Yeah, 100%. That is definitely a huge fear that a lot of people have. I personally love VAs and executive assistants that don't have to be in the office. My whole team's remote, and it's a trust factor at the end of the day. It absolutely is. You don't know if they're logging the hours. You can do harvest tracking or toggle for time tracking. If you use Upwork for VAs, they actually have a software that takes screenshots of the assistant's computer while they're working. So that way, if they're logged into what they say they're doing. but for me, having a good VA and having a good executive assistant comes down to, just like it does for any other employee, the hiring process. Are you interviewing them properly? Are you going through a system to make sure that you have a really good candidate and a really good hire? Because I think a lot of people will think they don't they want to hire a VA and they rush the process because it's not the same as an in-person employee, so they don't feel like they have to do the same things. But you do. You should interview them multiple times. You should do a personality test if you really want to. So hiring is super important. And then what I always see is the biggest failure with VAs and executive assistants is not giving them that structure, not giving them that system to succeed. So they'll pass something off to them assuming that they know how to do it. And when the VA doesn't know how to do it, the entrepreneur gets frustrated and takes back the work. But if we go back to what I was saying earlier about my blog example, I didn't just say, hey, Meredith, go and do this. Like, I created a video of myself doing the process, explaining the process, typed it out, and then passed that off to her. And now she can execute it 100% of the way that I'd like it to be executed. And then she makes it even better, which is awesome, because she says, hey, this is inefficient. Why don't we do it like this? And that's perfect. That's what you want someone to do. But I find that that's the biggest failure when it comes to VAs and executive assistants, is people not giving them the structure to win early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look at McDonald's, that's one of the biggest reasons why their franchise is so successful, is because they actually break down everything into operational systems with photos, booklets, videos, how to where anyone can just, get into any position and just do it perfectly.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, systems allow you to really leverage your team to the highest capacity. And I find that the teams love it too, because now they know exactly how to do something. They don't have to think about ambiguity. They can just go and do their job and execute at a high level. So they feel more secure about what they're doing too.
Now, how long would it take to put together, at least in your experience with working some of these 7-8 figure companies, how long does it take to put together a large manual or a handbook for each position or for the entire company so people can just do the job efficiently?
Yeah, awesome question. So it can take anywhere from, depending on the size of the company, a month to an entire year. But I never suggest going and building this out in this, let's not shut down the business for 4 months and go and type up all these documents and processes and screenshots, et cetera. I like to suggest doing it at a pace. So when you're doing a task, create the process for it and then throw it into your playbook. And then when you're doing another task, create the process for that. And a month later, create the process for this. Like it should really be an evolving thing that everybody is co-creating as a team, not just one person building it all out for the whole company, because the person who's doing the work should be the one that has a large part of creating that process, because they know how it's done. They know the nips and crannies of doing that piece. So I never suggest like making a whole project of building every single part out. It's more, hey, let's do it as we go.
Mm-hmm. Now your website,
and that's way less intimidating.
Yeah. Now your website has a section dedicated to the 5 keys to live life without the what ifs. So can you break down what those 5 keys are and how you come about them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually my whole book is about those 5 keys. So I got really into the concept of limiting beliefs when I was building not only the student painter company, but my real estate development company. I noticed that I had a lot of limiting beliefs that were holding me back from living a fulfilled life. And as I was working through those, I was also studying a lot of great people and people I looked up to, and also just talking to a lot of other entrepreneurs and experiencing a lot of things as I was rapidly growing these 2 companies. And, I came up with these 5 keys that if I focus on those every day, then I can really live my best life. And, the first and most important one is knowing your why. So know why you're doing things, right? Simon Sinek talks about that and how important it is, not only in your business, but in your personal life. And I've really taken that and thought about, why am I doing things? What's my purpose here? And got really introspective about that world. So I think number one, that is the most important thing, because when you're going through really tough times and you have those doubts and you have those limiting beliefs, your why and your purpose is going to push you through that way more than financial incentive or external incentives are going to do. Your internal why is going to push you through that. So the number one big key is, figure out why you're doing things. What's the purpose? Why are you here? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? That's a big one. Number two is, know you can't fail. So I learned this concept when I was doing the student painter route, and I was really struggling. I was hurting. I just lost all of my painters in the middle of the summer with $40,000 still left to produce. I thought I was going to have to throw it in and quit, and it was a tough time for me. And I got to meet with one of a former student painter way back in the day, and he ran a $17 million logistics company. And we were talking and hanging out, and I was kind of telling him some of my struggles, and he just laughed at me and he said, "You don't even know how awesome in a position you are." And I was like, okay, what do you mean? He's like, "You don't even understand that you can't fail." And I was like, okay, I understand positivity is really important, but I don't need that right now. I need a plan. And he retorted, he said, "No, you don't understand. You can't fail. As long as you don't quit, you can't fail. And I know you're not a quitter, Christian." And that really just hit me on the head, and really changed my perspective about the whole thing. This wasn't a failure. This was just a learning opportunity. And so I went back, finished out, I hired a whole new team, finished out the season strong, and really brought that lesson of you can't fail unless you quit back into my life. So I believe that that's a huge key, because failure, or the fear of failure, stops so many more businesses than actual failure ever does.
Yeah, there was a quote by someone that worked at GE, where there was a situation where one of their employees made a $600,000 mistake for the company, and they were asking his boss, "Are you going to fire him?" And he says, "Why am I going to fire him? I just spent $600,000 in training him."
I love that.
Yeah, so for sure, I mean, failure is you can't really look at it as a negative, even though most people will. You have to really look at it as a learning experience.
Yeah, totally agree. It's just another part of life, and you just keep moving forward.
So what about number three?
Number three is your habits. So, Socrates has a really awesome quote that excellence isn't an act, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence isn't an act, but a habit. And I believe in my life that is so true. I've noticed times where I had really poor habits and life wasn't going so well, and I was having bad attitude and bad mindset. But once I started really working on developing positive habits for my life, things really started to turn around. So noticing your habits, being aware of the habits you have, and then working to make better habits. So one key for me is, your habits. Watch your habits. Fourth key is people. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So really being aware of the people you spend so much time with. Are they building you up, and are they supporting your dreams, or are they breaking you down and belittling your dreams? People spend a lot of time with people that aren't great for them, because out of obligation, out of fear of rejection, all of these different things. But, you really do have to be mindful of who you spend time with, because it does make you who you are, even if you don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fifth and final key is always be growing. So I've noticed a lot of times I see people who will get to a certain level of something, and then they stop because they get cocky or confident or whatever. They feel like they've reached the pinnacle, and they regress, and they have, they start creating more limiting beliefs because they got to this point and went backwards. So my motto in life is check your ego at the door and learn. Just try to learn from everybody you can. Stay humble. Everybody can teach you something, even if it's what not to do. I really, really believe in that. And, there's a really cool story of Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in history, where he wasn't born rich. His family was actually a poor family from Scotland. They came over as immigrants. He started working when he was 9 years old in a factory, a cotton factory. And all the other boys would just get really dirty. They'd go play, et cetera. But he was always asking his boss questions about how things ran, how he do things. And his boss started taking a liking to him, got him a job at a different place. And that same trajectory and trend of him always asking questions, always trying to learn, always trying to grow, really developed himself into eventually the big business tycoon that we all know. So that really blew my mind when I found that out.
So millennials, I know millennials have been talked about a lot in the media, and you have a big group of people that believe the stereotype that millennials want everything handed to them, that millennials expect everything to be handed to them without putting in any serious work. Has that been your experience in working with millennials?
It hasn't. I mean, I'm a millennial, right? I'm a young person. So I think there is some entitlement going on in not just millennials, but everywhere I see in America right now. But I think it's just depends on the people. I mean, I've seen millennials that are entitled and think that, but I've also seen millennials that are the hardest working people I know, that are working and learning and humble and want to earn what they get. And I've seen older people who are entitled and want everything now and want everything right away. And then I've seen older people that are hardworking and honest and really just great workers and great people. So I just think that's kind of the stereotype that we got, and it's fun to throw out in the media, so they just keep the narrative going.
Yeah, right. One of the things that I know is a big topic amongst young people is the quality of jobs available on the market. And so many have to go out and do different side jobs or a lot of small odd jobs too, right? Uber, Lyft is a popular one. You just start driving and you're able to make a little bit of extra cash. Now, not everyone's going to be doing an Uber or Lyft and driving for the companies, but there is definitely a lot of conversation that young people are having as far as odd and small jobs. And I think it's in a way good because it's going to force a lot of young people to really try different things and discover what they really like to do. And then at that point, once they discover what they like to do, now I think wheels start to turn in their head and they decide, well, how can I make this into a very sustainable business for myself? And so being that you also started a business when you were in college, what would be the number one tip that you have for today's young workers to navigate through today's work environment and how to discover what they may be passionate about?
Yeah, phenomenal question. I agree. I see that a lot too. The whole gig economy where there's more and more freelancers. And I think I saw, don't quote me on the stat, but the amount of entrepreneurs, so people who run their own company, are going to 10x in the next 20 years based on trends, which is just mind blowing. So yeah, that is a hot topic right now, because then if there's so many freelancers and entrepreneurs, how do you create jobs and have employees and build big businesses? So it's a really interesting dynamic and shift that we're seeing, and who knows if it's going to continue, but it is really interesting to talk about and think about as you build a business in the new, into the new world that we're moving into. In terms of, a young person entering the workforce and trying to figure out what they love, I would say be curious and follow your curiosities. you know, try a lot of different things. I find a lot of people that don't like what they're doing, but they don't know what they like, right? But it's because they also haven't tried many things. So I think finding out what you like is really important. And I think you can do that and be curious. I'd also say don't get too stressed out. If you're young, work your absolute hardest at whatever you're doing while staying curious. And your destiny and your purpose is going to find you at exactly the right time that the universe wants it to find you. I really believe that. I just think you have to be open to receiving it when the time comes.
Yeah, that's one thing I definitely see young people get caught up in is the now economy, right? The I want things now, and they also want the success to happen now in some cases because, and I remember when I was 18, I started in real estate when I was 18 and 19, 20, like I was the same way. I wanted success now, but now being in business 16 years, you look back and you're like, man, I've done quite a bit in 16 years and I still probably have a good 50 years ahead of me. And it's really just playing the marathon game and, you know, doing the right habits, doing the right things day in, day out, and just continue building the business. And eventually that success comes over time and just making sure you have the right systems in place. But yeah, it's, I mean, I'm 33, about to be 34, and just imagining that, okay, I've been in business 16 years. There could be another 30, 40 years of me in business easy. All of a sudden, the pressure really comes off.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I actually talk about that quite often with a buddy of mine where, you know, we're both really pushing hard. We're working, we're growing, we're doing really awesome things. And so that sometimes you can get frustrated doing that because you see other people who are older than you and they're, you know, in different places. And then we have to remember, this is the long game. You know, life, as long as you're growing constantly and you're pushing and you're trying to learn and you're trying to figure out what you're fulfilled and what you're really passionate about and what you want to go in on, it's a really long game and it's exponential. So it's not going to be linear. It's going to be exponential and it's going to pop off. You just got to keep doing the things, the right things. And one focusing question that I like to ask people a lot is, what would you do if you know you would fail? So what is so important to you that you would do it even though you know you'd fail doing it? That question really hit me in the head when I was deciding whether to leave my real estate development company or not. And pursue, you know, helping entrepreneurs, and then now with Elevate Next, helping young 25 to 35-year-olds who want to elevate their personal and business systems. That's really my big passion, and that's what I would do even if I failed doing it. So for me, that question really focused me and helped me decide where I wanted to go next after real estate development.
Yeah, and most of what we're talking about right now is for the soulpreneur, the person who owns a business and wants to focus around their passion. I've actually met some serial entrepreneurs. These are the hardcore people that really, and it's funny to talk to them because they always get tired. Every business that they start, they get tired. No matter how successful or how much of a failure the business is, they get tired and they want to go start another one. And it's a completely different mindset, personality on these people that all they want to do is start another business. And they're in their 70s and 80s and still starting a brand new business. And even at that age, they've got a lot more experience and they know how to start up a really good business, even in their 70s.
Yeah, I know the type of people you're talking about for sure. And, you know, I wonder if what they would do if they would fail is continue to build businesses, try to sell them and add value to the marketplace, or have they just never found what they love doing? And so they never went all in on something.
You know, I talked to a neighbor of mine that was a serial entrepreneur, and now he does consulting. But back in the day when he was younger, he started up a pharmacy company in San Francisco that eventually sold off to CVS. He started He started this website back in the 90s where you could stream movies and TV shows that eventually got sold to Hollywood Video. He started a grocery store that eventually got sold to a company that eventually then merged with Whole Foods. And so he's just tied to a lot of these very successful initial startup companies that have gone on to now you can see how everything's developed, right? He was in the dinosaur age of a lot of these tech companies and a lot of these big, massive companies today. But for him, it just became to a point where no matter how successful of a business he built, he just simply got tired of running it. Mm-hmm. He wanted something new. And I think for him, it was just really the excitement, the unsurety, the randomness of just starting the new company and dealing with those problems and just really enjoying having the love for dealing with those startup problems. And I think that was just his game. But a completely different mentality because you have to be able to mentally, I mean, starting that one business alone can be stressful enough. So imagine starting 2 or 3 or 4 or just doing that your entire life. You have to have a real love for it.
For sure. That's awesome. Well, that's so cool that he went on that journey.
Yeah. So let's talk about Elevate. You had mentioned when I asked you what has your attention right now, you mentioned Elevate.
Yeah, Elevate Next.
Elevate Next. So what is Elevate Next?
Yeah, Elevate Next is our new program that we have started putting out there, and it's a 12-week group coaching program for young high performers, basically the people that we've been talking about on the show today, 25 to 35-year-old people who are, solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or even intrapreneurs, people working at jobs that want to either grow in that position or they want to start their own thing one day, really helping this group of people implement and elevate their personal systems and business systems so that they can start living their best life. They can get to the next level of growth that they want to get to. And it's been a huge passion of mine my entire life, coming from student painters and even in CC. And one really cool opportunity that we have with Elevate Next is when someone enrolls in the Elevate Next program, we also give a scholarship out to a foster youth to learn the same principles of personal development, mindfulness, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy. So it's been really fun, really awesome stuff, and really passionate, big passion of mine.
That's awesome. So what are the goals for Elevate Advisors in the next 5 to 10 years? What's the ultimate end game for you?
Yeah, great question. Ultimate end game for me with Elevate, whether it's Elevate Advisors and Elevate Next, they're basically under the same umbrella. My big goal in life, and I guess you can call it a BHAG of mine, is to change and improve our education system. So changing the curriculum where it's going from this antiquated system of if you don't get good grades, you're not good enough. If you don't go to college, you're not good enough. If you don't get a good job, you're not good enough. And teaching this factory-driven education model, really coming in and changing the curriculum and really empowering young adults, young kids from elementary school all the way up through high school to live their best life and learn about real-life business skills, financial literacy that's actually going to help them in life, personal development, and mindfulness, how to live a happy and fulfilled life. So that's my big goal. And that's why Elevate Next is so exciting to me, because we're teaching that stuff to 25 and 35-year-olds, and then we're teaching them the foster youth. And eventually my goal is to move down into high school education and help change the curriculum.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic in itself, is just a whole educational system, and really it fails on so many different levels just because it hasn't been able to keep up with the times and how the economy and how the markets are just changing. Now, if someone wants to work with Elevate Advisors, what's the best way for them to contact you or contact the company?
Yeah, if someone wants to work with Elevate Advisors, or if someone wants to enroll with Elevate Next, they can just email me directly at christianchasmer@gmail.com, or they can check out our website, which is elevateyoursystems.com.
Perfect. So, Christian, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. Real quick, since The Legend of Ron Burgundy took place in San Diego, what's your favorite part of the movie?
Oh, man. Actually, that is one of my favorite movies of all time. That introduced me to comedy. I think my favorite part of that movie is the pool party when he meets his future lady for the first time. I think that is one of the funniest scenes in the history of movies.
It definitely was a good
question.
scene and a great movie. What was the name of that cologne?
Oh, Sex Panther.
Sex
Sex
Panther.
Panther.
It
Yeah,
worked.
70% of the time it works every time.
Yeah, exactly. That had to be my favorite quote from that movie. It was just hilarious. So, Christian, thank you for being on the podcast. Lots of really good information. We'll go ahead and link up your website, contact info in the comments description. And good luck to Elevate Advisors and your future endeavors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marc, for having me. This was a great time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.